super pumped and excited and honored to be introducing our next guest speaker. I've known her all my life, and I'm just super proud of the achievements that she has achieved in such a short period of time. She is a beauty and lifestyle creator who's one of the top established Muslim creators in the beauty category. From Ethiopian descent, Aysha's channel includes a mix of in-depth tutorials, as well as commentary on social issues like Black Muslim representation in the media and colorism. She's been featured in top media outlets like People, Forbes, and Refinery29 as a cultural influencer who's breaking new ground for Muslim women around the globe. Today, she will be discussing her journey to becoming a full-time content creator and peeling back the layers of the influencer industry from a creator's perspective. So without further ado, I would like to give the hashtag virtual stage to the one and only Aysha Harun.
Thank you so much, Rania. That was an amazing introduction. Hi, everyone. I'm Aysha Harun, and I'm really excited to be speaking with you all today. And we're going to pull up a little presentation to go along with this as well. Bear in mind, this is like the first PowerPoint I've made since graduating university 4 years ago, so bear with me. Once we have that set up, I can get started.
Give me 1 second, Aysha.
No problem.
I'm just moving it around, okay? Just give me a second.
No problem at all.
You know what, Sisha, if you can help me, that would be great.
Yes, I can jump in. Give me 1 second.
Perfect.
The teamwork here.
You
see the screen?
Yeah, I think we can just make it a little bigger, just full size, and then we can get started.
Okay. Is it pinned there? Can we see it now?
Yeah, I can see it. It's just, there's still the bar on the side.
There we go. Can you see it now?
Yeah, that's great. I mean, it still has the internet bar on the top, but I think it's fine.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
I'll work on that as you're presenting, Aysha.
Yes. Okay, perfect. So yeah, I'm really excited to be speaking with you all today. I am a full-time content creator, social media personality on YouTube, Instagram, and more recently TikTok, with an amassed following of over 800,000 followers. And I create beauty, lifestyle, modest fashion, wellness content on all my platforms. And I've been able to successfully monetize each one of them and create a really sustainable business for myself over the last 4 years. Before we get into, I guess, the juicy stuff, I just wanted to share a little bit about myself in case you guys don't know. I was born and raised in Scarborough to 2 Ethiopian parents, and I graduated from Wilfrid Laurier University in 2017 with my bachelor's in business administration, and I specialized in marketing and brand communication. So not too long ago, I was in a lot of your guys' places as well. And actually in 2019, I was granted an O1 visa of extraordinary abilities, which basically just means I was cool enough in the US government's eyes to move to America and continue my work in social media. So I currently live in sunny Los Angeles, and I've been able to kind of like establish my company, Aysha Harun Media LLC, and continue to create content with my brand partners. So hopefully by the end of this, you'll have a better understanding of the influencer industry from an actual creator's perspective. I feel like there's a lot of, I don't know, misinformation out there and maybe just some confusion. So hopefully this helps. And of course, I believe we're welcoming questions at the end with Rania as well. So stay tuned for that. So we'll go into the next slide. And I will briefly embarrass myself with this screenshot of how it started. So July 5th, 2011, we're coming up on a decade that I've been on YouTube, and this was the first video that I ever published. It was called the Getting Ready tag. Tags were really big at that time. So I was only 16 years old. So like I mentioned, it's been nearly a decade of creating content online. And I personally grew up watching YouTube, fangirling over YouTubers. And then eventually I stumbled upon the beauty community and Michelle Phan, Jackie Aina, Patricia Bright, Bethany Moda, many more. And I loved it so much, but I realized there wasn't many people or anyone really that looks like me. So I decided one summer, I was bored, I was going to create that representation for myself. And although no one was really watching at the time, I am really happy and proud to say now that I'm able to represent Black Muslim women on YouTube and in, you know, mainstream media, in the beauty platform. So without even knowing, I was kind of filling a void at the time that I never even realized existed. So we'll move on to the next slide, and I will further share some more screenshots of what my channel looked like many years ago. But I think what's different here is I was actually able to create content I was passionate about, which at the time was strictly beauty and fashion, as you can see. And it was to a niche audience that never really saw themselves represented online or in mainstream media. Now granted, the first couple years, no one was really watching me. I'm pretty sure majority of the views were like of me and my cousins refreshing the page, but you know, we moved on. And I think I was genuinely enjoying what I did, and I think that came across in my channel. And at the time, while I was doing a lot of beauty, I think the times have kind of shifted into more of a lifestyle industry. So that's kind of where I'm at right now, but I did kind of want to share what I was doing. And I was pushing out weekly content. Over time, I started investing in higher quality equipment. But this time I was only really focusing on YouTube instead of other platforms because it was the biggest at the time. I know that's kind of shifted recently to more Instagram and TikTok, and I'll get into those trends a little bit later as well because they are very important. But I believe YouTube is definitely where I was able to establish my name in the industry and you know, continue my career there. So we'll move on to the next slide, and I'll share kind of the journey of going full time. So can we just move to the next slide? Rania? Okay, well, I'll just get started, and then once the slide changes, you guys can see. But as I mentioned, I did go to Laurier for my BBA in marketing, and honestly, not even once did I ever think I would pursue YouTube full time. I personally had goals of getting into brand management for a beauty company post-grad, but everything kind of changed when I landed an internship in the summer going into my 4th year with Community. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with them, but they are a media agency based in Toronto. And at the time they were managing a lot of, you know, top tier YouTubers, and I was on their partner strategy and marketing team. So it was kind of the first time I was able to see what a successful creator looked like, and I got insights on how to create campaigns for brands from all the way from the RFP phase, which is the request for proposal phase, all the way to budgeting, execution, reporting, analytics. And it was the first time I ever really considered a career in content creation because I saw it was actually doable, and you didn't actually have to have like millions and millions of followers or a huge audience to actually make a sustainable living off of it either. So I think that's the first time I really realized this could be something I could potentially go into post-grad. And I think it's also very important to note, while I did go to Wilfrid Laurier University, they had a great co-op program. I actually never got into their co-op program, and it was really difficult for me to get over that. But now looking back, I'm actually so grateful on that lost opportunity, because had I maybe gotten into the co-op program, I probably wouldn't have fallen on this career that kind of was way more fulfilling for me in the end. So for any of you who have felt like, you know, you're missed on a job opportunity or something that you really, really wanted, just know like there can be something that's much greater on the other side. And that's, you know, I'm really thankful for that right now. But in my final semester of university, that's kind of when I made the decision to possibly go full time. And instead of applying for the corporate roles, I had always intended on working in. I gave myself that summer, so May to September, to really just see if this was going to be a sustainable career for me. And I wanted to make sure I wasn't just kind of sitting around. I was putting in the work, and I knew at the end of the summer, if it wasn't working, I would then apply to corporate roles. But clearly, you know, 4 years later, I'm still doing what I love. And I've made a full-time career off of it as well. So I think one of the greatest insights, or the greatest signs actually, that I was supposed to be where I was I actually hit my first 100,000 subscribers on YouTube the very same day I walked across Laurier's stage and got my BBA degree. So if there was ever a sign that I needed, it was definitely that day. So let's move on to kind of how it's going now. We'll move on to the next slide. As I mentioned, it's been exactly 4 years now, actually, since I went full-time with my YouTube career. And since then, I've been able to build out my Instagram from less than 10K at the time. I wasn't really using Instagram as much to nearly 300K now. I've successfully monetized it to the point where I make about the same level of income from both YouTube and Instagram. And I also recently started getting more into TikTok, as well as I feel like it's quickly becoming like the top social media platform, which I've been able to monetize as well. And it hasn't always been easy, especially I want to make a note, especially being a Black Muslim woman surrounded by mainly white or white passing influencers. But I'm very proud to say that I have been able to establish a business that makes well over 6 figures, grow out my team to include a manager, coordinator, editor, assistant, photographer. And while it has been difficult along the way, it's definitely possible. And I never kind of made it a point of it to hold me back. So let's move into, I guess, the juicy details. I feel like people want to know more about the streams of income when it comes to the influencer industry. And there are a lot of streams of income. These are just a couple that I personally belong to, but there's many, many more. I don't think people realize how many different streams of income actually exist for influencers and content creators. So there's Google AdSense, which is the typical ads that you see on your YouTube videos. If you're watching a YouTube video, a creator will make a portion of that ad revenue. There's brand partnerships, which I'll get into more detail in a second. That's kind of my main source of income. There's affiliate programs, speaking engagements, there's merch, consulting, grants, which I just shared a little bit over here. I am part of YouTube's inaugural YouTube Black Voices Creator Fund, which is basically a grant that they put in place to help support their Black creators. And it was really, really amazing to receive that directly from the platform that started it all for me. And it's been able to help reinvest into my content and what I put out on a weekly basis. So there's also product launches, collaborations, TikTok Creator Fund, etc. Many, many different streams of income. But I want to, like I mentioned, tap more into the brand partnerships. So we'll move on to the next slide. And this personally, for me, is the largest stream of income at around 90% of the total revenue that I make being a full-time content creator. And these are just a few of the hundreds of brands I've been able to secure partnerships with in the past and present. And it's really created like an extremely lucrative form of income for me and many other creators. I feel like sometimes people aren't really sure what the breakdown is. Definitely if it's a YouTuber of high caliber, they're making millions of views on each video, probably AdSense will be one of their highest sources of revenue, but I feel like majority of the time, it definitely is brand partnerships. And I think, what's interesting is that in the beginning, I wasn't really able to land a lot of partnerships, even with my 100K plus following, because diversity and inclusivity was never really a priority for brands at the time. And this is speaking less than 5 years ago, which is kind of crazy to think about. But what this meant was that most of the paid opportunities were being filled by white or white passing influencers and creators, and Black creators were really overlooked. So it was definitely like a barrier for me to really like break through that. Add in the factor that I'm also a Black creator who wears the hijab. It's like it was really lowering the pool of brand partnerships that I was able to take, and I feel like brands weren't really taking me seriously at the time. But I'm happy to say times have definitely changed. Diversity and inclusivity is no longer an option for brands. It's definitely just the new normal, and it's been great for me in my career. So if any of you are sitting in the audience and maybe going into influencer marketing, just know that diversity and inclusivity is definitely very important, not only for the overall look of a brand, but also just, I mean, it's just with the times, like it's just very necessary for brands to make sure that, within your influencer campaigns, it's definitely very well-rounded and diverse and not just like, the token Black girl. Now let's get into what brand partnerships actually look like. Essentially, a brand is paying an influencer or creator to create content with their product or about their service, but I'd say, or for some sort of gain, but this can look very different for all different brands. But I'd say the majority are looking for like brand awareness and sales. Being that our work is all digital, I feel like it can actually be really easy to track online sales, click-through rates, all that kind of stuff. And for example, you know, if there was a link to a product that I shared in a video, a brand would ask, or a brand would give me like a trackable link so they can see how many people actually clicked through that. And that's kind of how reports are made, and how you could potentially continue working with that brand on a long-term basis. And this was actually the main part of my job when I worked for Kin Community, and I'd have to go in and create different reports based on the like to dislike ratio of a YouTube video, how many comments it received, any positive comments about the brand or product, views, watch time, etc. So naturally, when I went full-time, I really took the time to study my analytics weekly to improve my content and actually just ensure that it's meeting the brand expectations when creating sponsored content. So I feel like because I had that background and that insight, I was able to kind of frame my creative line of work more like a business rather than just, you know, kind of doing it free form. Now, for a YouTube sponsorship, it can come in a variety of different ways. There's dedicated videos, integrated videos, quick mentions. For Instagram, I mean, it could be a story, actual in-feed post, reels, IGTV, a live, TikTok, obviously TikToks. But I think the reason why influencer marketing is so successful today is because creators have spent literal years building and growing and engaging with their audience. So naturally they'll know exactly how to like appeal to their audience when speaking about a sponsored product. So many of you here today may be considering influencer marketing or just want some insight on it. Just remember that creators actually do have their own brands. Like, yes, they are people, they're personalities, but they are their own brand. And they've created a very unique space where you can now tap into the relationships they have with their audience, and receive an amazing ROI through the partnership because of it. So definitely let them have their creative freedom. I think that's when, you know, the most mutually beneficial experience is created. So I personally engage in about 5 to 10 partnerships each month. Some more long-term partnerships like Fabletics. I've been a partner with them for going on 2 years now. Biossance, Lancome, Nivea, Sephora, etc. And others will be kind of more one-off partnerships. So these are just a couple of the ones that that I've done over the last couple of years, but there are definitely many more. So in the beginning, I did have to create my own relationships and pitch myself to brands, but now I do work with a management team who kind of takes a lot of that work off my back, which is great. So they handle outreach, negotiations, contracts, project management. But you know, once upon a time, I was doing that all myself. But thankfully, majority of the conversations are now had between the brands and my managers. So it's kind of like a middleman. However, I do still take the time to pitch myself to certain brands I want to work with. I definitely love creating and sustaining relationships with my brand partners, because I think that makes the best relationship and the best partnerships long-term. So I just want to end off on the last slide with just, I guess, some tips, maybe, you know, how you can monetize your passion. Like I mentioned before, I personally never, ever envisioned myself in the career that I have right now. What started as like a little summer passion project in my childhood bedroom in Scarborough turned into like a really successful and rewarding career doing what I love. So I wanted to give some tips just to close off in case any of you are thinking about a career as a content creator, influencer, or maybe you just want to make some passive income while working your day job. You could totally do that too. And I think it's a very, very lucrative avenue. So I think the best place to start, honestly, in 2021, surprisingly, is TikTok. I know that sounds odd, but TikTok is slowly becoming the #1 social platform. And what I love about it is the algorithm doesn't really favor any particular type of content or person. Everyone kind of has a fair chance at becoming viral or growing an audience there. And my manager actually sent me an insight the other day that according to a business insider study, 68% of marketers surveyed plan on using TikTok for their marketing strategy in 2021, which actually beat out YouTube, which is very surprising. Instagram definitely is still #1 for advertisers, but I do have a feeling that will be leveled out very soon, just based on how TikTok has been, you know, succeeding lately. But to start, I want to just focus, I want to mention that focusing on creating consistent content about something you're very passionate about, whether that be in beauty, fashion, wellness, health, animals, tools, like literally anything. Just find something you love, and be consistent with it. Remember that like the more you put into it, the more you'll get out of it. I think that's definitely the key. Definitely don't focus on the money right from the jump. It took me nearly 6 years to make any sort of real money through YouTube. So patience is definitely very important, but focusing on the money will just make you miserable, honestly, and turn a passion into something like you really dread. But once you have built a smaller following, create a chase list of brands you really want to work with in the future. I think this will give a better idea, a clear idea of who to reach out to when you feel ready. You can also reach out to these brands for gifting, creating a relationship with them, so by the time you've built up your following, you know that you already have that existing relationship, and you can start getting paid partnerships as well. One thing that I definitely did in the beginning to grow my audience is studying trends. See what's trending on each platform, create content around those trends, and create different strategies for each platform as well. Like my YouTube strategy versus my Instagram strategy versus my TikTok strategy is completely different. So just focusing on that is important. So for example, content around holiday, Valentine's, Ramadan, Eid, summer, back to school, even just like the music trends on TikTok, like are super important to broaden your audience because there are more people viewing content with those songs. And last, just like have fun with it. The best part of what I do is that I genuinely love it. Like 10 years is a very long time to be doing the same thing. But it's because it stemmed from a passion. Like I don't feel burnt out from what I do most days, at least. Sometimes I do need a break, but you know, it all comes down to where that passion started. So that's all I have today. I think we're going to open up the floor to any questions you guys have, but thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Aysha. I learned so much about your journey today, so this is good, but we have a lot of questions for you. So the first question is, being a Black Muslim woman, do you feel you are in a unique position to be the voice of this underrepresented group?
I would say yes. Like, I don't want to say I'm representative of every Black Muslim woman, but you know, there's very few of us who have reached the point where we are working with brands. We do have a voice in the industry. So I do think, you know, especially with my contacts through YouTube and Google, it's very important for me to share our specific differences, you know, in any session that I'm in, any panel that I'm doing. So I definitely feel like I am a little bit of a representative for that. I'm proud to be that. So I'm definitely happy that people actually support the content that I make.
Perfect. And I have a question for you. So where do you see yourself in the next 5-10 years with influencer marketing, content creation? Where do you see yourself?
I see myself hopefully still making content definitely in the next 5 to 10 years, but I definitely want to move off platform slightly, maybe open up or launch my own business. I definitely have like discussions and stuff behind the scenes with my team about that, just because I feel like I spend so much time advertising for other brands, like why not create something for myself? So I think we're seeing a lot more influencers launch their own brands, and that's definitely something I would love to do, and just maybe even advocate more for the Black Muslim community off platform as well, to make sure we're like accurately represented in like mainstream media, not just social media.
Perfect. And do brands lay strict guidelines for you to follow, or do you have full flexibility on how you want to showcase them? Just to give us a little bit of a tidbit on that.
Yeah, so what usually happens is once, you know, a deal is negotiated, brands will usually send a brief. So they'll give pointers on like, this is the product, these are the key ingredients in the product, or key points that we'd like you to hit. But they'll usually say like, stick to like 1 or 2 points. So if they're saying like, this product helps like clear your skin and does this and that, I'll just kind of pick 1 or 2 that resonates with me, and I'll share that in my own voice. I feel like majority of the time, especially now, and I would say over the last 2 years, they definitely give me a lot more free reign to just create the content that I know will do well using their products. So I think we've definitely moved away from the times where they would just send a script and essentially you'd have to like follow that. I'm glad to say I haven't done that. So yeah.
Okay. And you're touching about 500,000 subscribers on YouTube. Woohoo! Do you think this was possible? Like, tell me a little bit about that experience.
So the first thing that pops into mind is when I was Well, first of all, I never thought I'd hit 100,000 subscribers. So the day that I hit that, I was like over the moon. And the fact that it was the day I graduated was like an even bigger celebration. But I distinctly remember a conversation I had with my managers when I was first, in chats with signing with them. I told them, they asked me a question, where do you kind of see yourself, your following, et cetera. And I'm like, you know what, just as a Black Muslim woman, I feel like 500,000 will be like my max. Like, I think that's going to be like the million for me. And, that's kind of the end goal. So now almost reaching 500,000, I can see now that 3 years ago, I was just such a naive person thinking that I wouldn't be able to break through that barrier. So I'm really proud and happy that my community's grown that large. Yeah.
Yes, you should be. You should be. And for an inspiring influencer that just started out, what equipment lighting would you say is essential?
I would say I personally love natural lighting. I think just in front of a good window, that's how I kind of started my channel for a while. I did invest in softbox lights and stuff like that, but I think the basic, if you honestly have an iPhone 11 or above, shoots in 4K, looks amazing, use the back camera, and in front of a window, you'll be good to go. I think eventually if you want to upgrade, one of my favorite cameras is the Canon M50. It's a mirrorless camera. You can switch the lenses. It's generally pretty inexpensive as well compared to other more expensive cameras, and you can use it both for vlogging or more professional sit-down videos.
Okay, I have a personal question. So do you have an Instagram personality or books that, which influence you today or just motivate you to do more?
Yeah, two that stick out to me. I definitely like to follow a lot more Black creators because that's what inspires me. But Jackie Aina and Patricia Bright, they've been in the industry for years. Jackie Aina has become a really great friend of mine since moving to LA as well. And I just love the way they're just unapologetically themselves, are always trying to uplift the Black community and really just be a voice and support other Black creators to create a more inclusive community. So those two I've always looked up to, and I continue to want to strive to be on their level of success as well.
I also like Jackie. It's Aina, right? Or is it?
Yeah.
And how do you react and feel when Instagram stopped displaying the number of likes and posts on feeds?
You know what? I haven't lost that feature yet. I think that was mainly in Canada.
Yeah, I don't have that on my, I don't have that at all on my Instagram.
Yeah, it hasn't really changed for me, thankfully, but I do have a business account, so maybe that's why. I'm not really sure. Yeah.
Okay.
But I will say a lot of creators were upset by that. But in the end, I think it doesn't really matter because we can still kind of see the back end insights and share that to brands anyways. So it kind of takes the pressure off, I feel like, for anyone wanting to get into the influencer industry.
And it's not, you know what, Aysha, and it's not even always about vanity metrics either, right? So I think that was the purpose behind it and the whole mental health issue, but good to know, right? So, and how did you, what kind of biases and barriers did you have to overcome to start off, or just to make this far overall?
Yeah, I think the biggest barrier, honestly, was getting brands to really notice me in the beginning. I was going to school in Waterloo, so, it was a lot further. I wasn't really present in the Toronto influencer community as much. So when I moved back, it was kind of a whole challenge, even though now I have this large audience. It was like, okay, I don't really know what to do with it. I see a lot of white creators getting invited to events and getting all of the campaigns and et cetera. Like, why am I not getting that? But I never made it a point to be like, oh, woe is me, I'm pitying myself, et cetera. I'm just like, okay, what are the steps to do to get over that? And I literally would email and reach out to about 10 brands a day. That was kind of the main part of my job, to just put my name out there and get on PR lists and hopefully land paid partnerships in the future. So I just worked 10 times harder, essentially.
And that's what perseverance and tenacity does, right? So last but not least, best time to post on IG for influencers?
Okay, I think it really varies since we're kind of a global community at this point, but I feel like the morning is probably the best. I live in West Coast time, but I'd say on East Coast time, anytime between 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. is a great time to post. And then when people usually get off work around 5 p.m. So maybe just an hour before that. So 4 p.m. to 5 p.m.
Okay, I'm going to answer this question for the students. So what do you do when you see a decline in engagement and audience attraction?
Honestly, it happens. It happens. Like it's not something that bothers me as much anymore. But I do take note. If there's a video that I put out that I think is going to do really well and it flops, I'm like, okay, maybe they weren't really interested in that. I think there's a lot of back-end analytics that you can also look into. So my favorite thing is looking at watch time and when watch time actually drops. So maybe people are watching the first 2 minutes of the video, and maybe if I'm talking too much, watch time completely declines. So I'm going to be like, okay, I need to make it a little bit more interesting in the first 5 minutes to really hold that engagement. But in the end, some content's going to do really well, some content's not. It's just kind of like, you got to deal with it and try not to like let it hurt your ego, I guess.